Welcome into the Full Tilt Devy podcast on the Full Tilt Dynasty podcast network. Now for your hosts, Mr. John Arrington and Andy Starr.
Welcome in, guys, to episode 170 of the Full Tilt Dynasty podcast network. I'm your host, Dynasty Coach A, joined by A-Star FF on Twitter, as always. And tonight we're going to be talking about some Devy football. How are you doing tonight, Andy? Uh-oh, I can't hear you. Oh, still can't hear you.
Starting off strong, just so.
Oh, yeah.
No, I'm doing well. I was at my cousin's wedding this weekend and watching that Tennessee game, and man, oh man, what a great game. Can't wait to talk about it.
Oh, was there a game on this weekend?
A little one, but it was
All
fun.
right, I don't even know why we're talking. Why don't we just go ahead and start it off with the man, the myth, the legend, Lucas, talking about his Tennessee Volunteers. I won't even give it away because I'm sure it's a big surprise to everyone what happened in the game. But what did you think of the game, Lucas?
Well, I asked Tom if I could play Rocky Top on here, and he told me no. And then I asked Tom if I could play Dixieland Delight on here, and he said no again.
Oh, no.
So I won't put out to the world my singing ability because I don't want us to lose viewers.
Rocket Top.
Man, it was awesome. If you haven't seen what Game Day did, it was amazing. Pat McAfee, Peyton Manning, pure magic. And then let's actually talk about the game. Hidden hooker, Jalin Hyatt. I know what my children's names are going to be now.
Hendon and Jalin? That's awesome.
Yeah, I got to break that one in, though. That one might not fall my way, but I can give it a go. Go Vols, not by 50, but scored 50. I will take it.
We were close. We were close
awesome.
with the Vols by 50. It was Vols score 50. That's what we were thinking. We just didn't quite see that premonition quite correct. But man, what a game! Even as not a fan of either team, I don't have the Bama hatred that a lot of people seem to have. But that's probably just because I'm newer to not newer to caring about college football. I mean, I grew up a Gator fan and all that kind of, but I stopped caring about college football for the longest time, and so now I'm getting back into it. So that's probably why I don't truly have that hatred that a lot of people have. I just want to see good football, and that was good football. And we talked about it last week about how I wanted to watch Hendon Hooker, and man, he looked pretty good. Now I will say a lot of those plays were wide open, but you can say whether it's the scheme or whatever. But the fact that he was able to get those plays, down the field, get those throws down the field and everything, it was still quite impressive.
Well, I will say that I am a Bama hater, and this game was right up there with the last Bama huge L that I love to see, which was the kick six against Auburn like 10, 11 years ago. But yeah, what a great game. I wonder if they ever fished out the goalpost from the Tennessee River. I don't know, but that was incredible. The energy, that's what college football is like what that whole day was. That was so intense. It was, just to be there would have been life, once in a lifetime experience. But congrats to them. And Hendon Hooker, he's now the odds-on favorite for the Heisman, which we obviously have to take account as Devy analysts. I think the last QB winner to not get drafted in the first round was Troy Smith out of Ohio State in 2006. So if he does win the Heisman, which I know we're only at the halfway point, that's going to be a huge, huge stack up for him. I still have him as deep beneath the top two in the class, but I can appreciate that he's much pricier than he was 7 days ago. Just other reactions from the game, I will say it was nice to get another Ja'Cory Brooks game out of the Alabama side. But again, I don't really have extreme confidence in those guys. And then Gibbs obviously looked nice again in the bell cow role. And then Bryce Young was incredible. They lost despite him, not because of him, because he looked great, and he's still locked in as my QB1.
Is Burton dead to you all at this point?
Oh, yeah, he's dead.
Yeah, it's pretty bad. Although Isaiah Bond is standing out as somebody that I'm pretty excited about. I also have him on my CDC team, so that makes it even better. But I think regardless of anything else, like he's a true freshman on the field, and he's kind of slowly working his way into that Jameson Williams role. Now, I will say today I saw some posts talking about Harrell coming back this week or whatever it is, and like that he's gonna have that deep role, so maybe that'll kill Bond and for this season. But just the fact that he's already doing what he's doing, even though it's not like he's not having amazing games or anything, but he's getting those big plays, he's standing out. That's definitely nice to see from a true freshman.
Kobe Prentice as well. I think he had like 5 or 6 catches last week. So yeah, those true freshman wide receivers are, given some hope over there in Alabama. But yeah, I don't know. We'll see what happens with the years to come here.
Yeah, I don't know how much I believe in Prentice, like as an actual talent. But Bryce Young seems to like him, and that might be the only thing that really matters. Like he really does target him pretty often. They just never turn into much. It's always pretty small plays. Brooks seems to be the most like complete wide receiver on there, and then like I said, Bond is kind of standing out. But yeah, Burton was probably always dead. We should have known that. You don't get better just because you go to Bama. You still have to have some talent.
Yeah, I can happily say I don't have any Burton shares because those are dead in the water at this point, I feel like.
I agree. Speaking of no talent, Texas A&M, their QB situation's getting pretty bad here. And I guess we have a changing of the guard, if you will.
Potentially. So, I think Jimbo Fisher actually came out yesterday and said Haynes King is going to start again. I'm not sure why he wants to do that. We know that Max Johnson got hurt earlier in the year after taking over for Haynes King. Then Haynes King came back and proceeded to lose 2 games in a row. But they have Connor Weigman waiting there. He's healthy. He was the number 2 composite quarterback in the 2022 freshman class. They play at South Carolina this week, who's been playing decent. They had a nice win at Kentucky a couple weeks ago. And we know that Haynes King isn't it. He got, like I said, benched for Max Johnson. I think he's going to be on like the shortest of leashes this weekend. I'm not sure if you can even call it a leash. I think if they're behind after the first 2 possessions, I don't know how they can keep him in. Fisher at this point, Jimbo Fisher is playing for his job. He might already be fired. I personally think he is. I think they're just, waiting for the season to be over, and then they're going to say thank you and send him on his way. But you've really got nothing to lose to try out the freshman here. So just see what he has. I think the team's good enough where you're not going to be putting him into like any sort of dangerous situation. So throw him out there, see if he can make some plays, and get your fans excited about next year when Jimbo Fisher will be fired.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. It never makes any sense to me. Penn State with Sean Clifford and everything. I just don't understand why these teams do like what they do. It never makes any sense. Like it was never going to be Caden McNamara for the entire season in Michigan. Like why do we have to like play these games? Weigman might not be the best player ever, but I mean he's a 5-star recruit, projected to be a first-round pick eventually. I don't understand, like you said, why he wouldn't be put on the field at some point just to see what you have. But the other thing is I've heard like conflicting reports about how he looked in practice and all that kind of stuff, but I mean everything I saw about like the spring game and spring practices showed that like he was good enough. Like he was able to move the offense down the field. It wasn't like it was too much for him or anything. So it just doesn't make any sense to me. And like you said, the team probably needs to know, do they have a quarterback here, or do they need to keep recruiting, or go hard in recruiting or trying to get a transfer or whatever?
Yeah, absolutely. And you're spot on. Like getting Harbaugh to name McCarthy as a starter was like pulling teeth. Ugh. And I'm not even like McCarthy now that he's the starter and we see what it's like. He's basically just Caden McNamara with like legs who can run. So part of it is just probably the Harbaugh system, but they're winning, so I'm not going to give him too much credit.
I know. I think he's a much better passer too. I'm not saying he's amazing, but
they just don't give him the opportunity. I feel like he's not getting those opportunities.
Yeah. Like his 15 passes a game look pretty damn good though.
Mm-hmm.
Another QB that used to be a pretty highly touted prospect, DJU, now says that he is against sliding. He doesn't believe in sliding, and I guess I've heard. I've heard both sides of the story. I know people that are just completely against sliding as well and think it's dumb. And then obviously you have people that are like, you can't get the QB hurt. You can't have them break their ankles and all that kind of stuff, or take a big hit, like that kind of thing. So I've heard both sides, but how do you feel about it?
Yeah, not a big news week, obviously, but but yeah. So I figured, DJU's playing a lot better. It'd be fun to have this discussion from a fantasy standpoint, because I do think it is maybe a 50-50 debate. But personally, I think this is not what you want to hear from a QB, especially, if he's going to be a potential NFL QB. Unless it's like the fourth quarter game on the line and you need like an extra 2 feet to score to get a first down, I think you need to be sliding. DJU, I know he's like an absolute beast of a man. He could probably comfortably truck stick like the average NCAA linebacker. But you got to protect yourself. And I wouldn't be surprised if he was spoken to by like his team about saying stuff like that. But yeah, I mean, like I said, DJU is potentially coming out this year if he can continue this season the way he has. He's efficient enough through the air. He's been pretty effective on the ground. And if he takes his team to the playoff, we could be talking about him as a first-round pick as well. But I honestly think he could benefit from another season in college, if I'm being honest. But I've been on the record as saying I'm all in on buying DJU at this point.
Yeah, I mean, he's creeping back up. He fell so hard. He was like every single person's QB1 for at least a little while, and then he just fell so hard last year. But as far as the sliding goes, I was always like, get down, slide, do all that kind of, like, I was always on that side. But more recently, I think we're seeing more and more head hits, head injuries. We obviously know concussions are a huge deal. And when they go down for the slide and the defender's trying to stop themselves or trying to like begin the dive to go tackle them, and then they slam into their head, and then now they both have a concussion and all that kind of stuff. Obviously, you don't want anyone to get a concussion, but you definitely don't want your star QB getting it. And so I guess I see both sides of the story, or both sides of, yeah, but I just don't. I don't know. Like I don't know which one I agree with more, but right now concussions are a bigger deal than just about anything else, and you can get a torn ACL or something else fixed, but it's really hard to get that head fixed if you have multiples. So I'm kind of leaning towards like agreeing with them, like just run out of bounds, like do something to avoid a hit. Don't don't run. You don't have to run. Figure out a way to get it down the field, get it to your running back, do whatever. Like, I'm sure, even though there's been an emphasis on running for quarterbacks, maybe we have to start getting away from that, even though that's not great for fantasy. But to save these quarterbacks, like, start protecting them in the pocket, start like focusing on them staying in the pocket unless it's a last resort, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, obviously the best solution is to run out of bounds if you can in those situations. But I mean, it's football, right? Anytime you're in the field of play, you've got a chance to get hurt. Even if you could probably tear an ACL sliding, honestly, those non-contact injuries. So, you're never safe out there.
Who was it? I can't remember if it was college or NFL this week, but somebody like did like a half slide and it looked like they hurt something. I cannot remember who it was, but somebody definitely did that where like they slid awkwardly or something, and so you definitely could get hurt either way. But yeah, I've just seen way too many of those. Like, I mean, you know exactly what I'm talking about, where they're just diving right into the helmet, and of course, then it gets flag and targeting and all that kind of stuff. But I feel like if you just kind of take away the slide, then you don't even have to worry about that, and then we can focus on good tackles, like that kind of thing, because it's really hard for those defenders because you're telling them they can only hit an area from here to here, and then the guy's trying to get down and all that. So I don't know, that's my opinion on it.
I respect it.
Alrighty, so I'm being told we're doing great on time, so I guess that means that we won't be taking a break here. So we'll go ahead, unless I don't know. I'll wait 3 seconds if I'm told to take a break here. I'm not being told to take a break, so we will go ahead and move on to our contenders or pretenders. And basically, we're going to be going over some players that have kind of like skyrocketed in value here. And we just need to figure out, do they actually have NFL potential, or are they just college fool's gold? Those players are Trey Palmer, Richard Reese, Dominic Lovett, Riley Leonard, Chris Rodriguez Jr., and Jalin Hyatt, which I think Lucas might know who Jalin Hyatt is.
Yeah. Jalin Hyatt, that's a spicy name this week, that's for sure.
Yeah.
But I'll start off. We'll just run right down the list, I guess. Trey Palmer, Nebraska wide receiver. He finds himself on this list because last week he exploded for 237 yards and 2 touchdowns. He's also logged 150 yards, but he's had at least 80 yards or a touchdown in 6 of the 7 games this year. He leads all Power 5 wide receivers in our favorite stat as analytics guys, and that's yards per team pass attempt. I don't have it written down here. I think it's like 3.53 or something he's at. But obviously the big knock against him is he is a late declare. He's a transfer, so I don't know if that's of any importance to you. He was at LSU for his first 3 seasons. 6'1", 190, 6.6 or 16.6 yards per catch. He has the athletic profile. He ran a sub 11 second 100 meter in high school, which was good enough for the state championship in Louisiana. So for me, I'm going to say, yes, this is a contender. He is a late declare, I know, so he's probably going to be a day 2 pick at his ceiling. I would say like early 3rd round, probably. NFL loves athletes and production in college. I think he's got, 3rd round written all over him. He's going to end up on a team and probably end up, being 2nd or 3rd round Dynasty rookie pick next year.
Yeah, I'm with you. I mean, he obviously skyrocketed this past week with the 200-plus yard game and everything. Not to say that that's his entire profile, just that one game, but like he was kind of okay before that big game. And
Right.
So we just have to see if it's going to continue. And we could probably say that about a lot of these guys. Like we just need to see a little bit more, as much as we love it. But, I usually say you don't see too many guys having like 200-yard plus games without having some kind of talent, So that being said, like right now I have him, or the model has him, like right in that like Jacob Coing kind of area. So we'll see if that continues. Like I said, he just jumped up to that spot, so it's not like he could obviously fall back down if he has a terrible game or anything like that. So I'd like to see him continue, but I'm with you. I mean, the fact that he's even up at that point as a senior, with everything that he's done is good. It's good enough. So I do think he can get day 2 draft capital, or day 3 at the worst. I think regardless, I think he will be drafted. I think we can say that pretty easily, but now we're just going to see, is it going to be day 2 or day 3? That's going to be the difference.
Yeah, especially with how this wide receiver class has kind of been shaping up. A lot of the guys that we thought were going to be good are not as good as we thought they were. So I think a lot of the guys at the top have lost value. So yeah, a guy having a big season like that, leading the team, all the Power 5 wide receivers in the 2023 class, and some of these analytical metrics that we love to see, hit certain thresholds, and he's doing it. So yeah, I'll take Trey Palmer. I think it's a good safe bet. He's not going to be a 1st round pick or anything, but he'll be solid.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. So the next one is Richard Reese. How are you feeling about him?
I know this one probably stings a little for you because the Reese breakout didn't really come until after your guy Tay McWilliams went down with injury.
I know.
He's been a nice college producer. He's got at least 75 yards and a touchdown in 3 out of the 4 games that he started. Only 5 catches in those games, but not a 0 in the pass game. The obvious knock against him is his size. 5'9", 175 pounds on the Baylor website, so probably smaller than that even. And I think if you're going to be that size, you better be making plays outside the tackles and in the passing game, which he hasn't shown this year. He's got a negative ADOT, which leads me to believe that he can't run routes. So at this point right now, I'm out on him as an NFL prospect. He's a true freshman though, obviously. So he has that going for him. True freshman breakout, tons of fun there, but he's got to develop some sort of, Swiss Army knife type role if he's going to see himself as an NFL running back.
Yeah, I was trying to find out. For whatever reason, I didn't have his weight. I know you had said that he was a little bit smaller here.
But 175.
Oof. Okay, that's a lot bit smaller.
Yeah.
So I've talked about it before, but I always try to go out of my way to just avoid those kind of guys. Not to avoid them, but I discount them heavily in the model just because what are the odds of them actually becoming a thing? Even if as a true freshman, we could maybe see him gain 15 pounds. That might even be on the high side for a smaller guy like that. But at that point, you're hoping for 190, and that's not going to be great. So I think that we see that he's explosive. I mean, that's usually what you would expect from a small guy like that. They're going to be quick and agile and everything. He has the big time run rate at 8%, that I like to see. The receptions per game are not great. Like you were saying, the points for PPR points per touch are looking pretty good. Scrimmage yards looking pretty good. Everything looks pretty good, but I think it's going to be more of a college thing. So I guess I would have to go ahead and say pretender on this one. I just don't believe that he's ever going to become anything unless he just has a major growth spurt at this point.
Yeah, I'm totally with you. Like I said, if he becomes like a Deuce Vaughn type guy where he can be used in multiple ways, maybe he finds himself as a return guy in the NFL and then can expand on that. But it's going to be a long road no matter what happens. So I'm not in on him very, very much at this point.
Yeah, I was trying to see where he actually ends up in the model now that I actually added his weight in. I'm interested to see that. So he hits 91st.
Nice.
91st in the rankings, running back rankings. So that is not ideal. But another one that actually is looking pretty good here is Dominic Lovett. And I have been picking up on him in the model for weeks now. And so it's pretty interesting. I didn't even really pay attention to what he did this past weekend, but I know for a fact that I noticed him maybe 3-4 weeks ago, and I was like, this guy's looking a little higher than I expected him. And then, here we are. He's on the list. So what are you thinking about Lovett here?
Yeah, this is another one that I wasn't really expecting in the preseason. I think a lot of us expected Burden to be the wide receiver one in Mizzou. Burden's still been good, by the way, but Lovett has been, their best receiver so far. Like I said, our favorite stat, yards per team pass attempt, he's at 2.82, which is in the top 3 or 4 for the 2024 class. He's 5'10", 185, which I think we've all come to accept as a fine size for wide receivers in the NFL. The touchdowns haven't really been there. I've read he plays faster than his timed speeds, which I don't like to hear stuff like that. He's primarily a slot guy, does all right after the catch with a yak per reception over 7 yards. But I'm going to call this one a pretender. I think if you're going to be this dynamic, undersized slot role like a Josh Downs, you really need to be your offense in college. And Lovett only has 40 targets in 6 games, which does lead the team, but he's on a running team. And I think I need to see much more production if I'm projecting this wide receiver archetype to the NFL. But the metrics are definitely there on paper. He hits everything. So it's tough for me as a primarily analytics guy to just, knock a guy in production when he's hitting all these things. But I think he needs to be better in that role if he's going to be in the NFL.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the one caveat there is, we did expect Luther Burden to be amazing, and even though he is, very young and everything, just the fact that Lovett is kind of like taking over that number one role, it's kind of telling. And anytime you see somebody get close to that 40% market share, like it starts getting pretty interesting. I get what you're saying, and maybe the athleticism's not there because I'm seeing his yards per reception average, or like for his college career, is 11.6. So like that could be partially the offense, it could be partially his athleticism. It's hard to say for sure. I don't really get into like trying to predict 40 times and all that kind of stuff. I that's just not my thing. I know there's some guys that do that, but I think it's definitely something to be worried about. But we see good players come out of bad offenses, so I don't want to like hate on them just because they don't throw the ball, a lot, and they're not like amazing with it. So we have to look at what he is doing well, and he's doing just about everything well, like with what he can do.
Yeah, absolutely. I will shout out big wide receiver guy who does great at projecting 40 times.
Yeah.
If in his DMs are always open, if it's at big WR guy. If you ever want to like, hey, what's this guy's 40 time going to be? Just DM that guy. He'll tell you. And he's pretty good.
Yeah, no, I like that. And he definitely, I've definitely heard him making those predictions. So let's see. The next name here is Riley Leonard. That's another one standing out in the model here. You made a pretty good list here. And a good one to finish up with when we get to that point.
For sure. Yeah, but Riley this is a weird one because I don't think anyone's really talking about him. Duke quarterback. I mean, I obviously go on Twitter after I put this show sheet together to see. I was like, is anyone talking about him? There was a couple Devy tweets about him, so he's not like a unknown asset or anything. But Duke quarterback. I think he's a redshirt freshman. He might be a true sophomore. I don't know how they classify him, but he's in his second year. He's got a nice, healthy QBR at 72. Really just about average of what you'd want to see passing wise from a potential NFL quarterback. So he doesn't really do anything spectacular, but nothing you can really say he does terribly. Where he gets a big boost for me is his rushing ability, nearly a 30% rushing yard market share. And he has the prototypical NFL size at 6'4", 215 pounds. And he has some room to add weight from what I've been reading about him. This is an official quote-unquote one to watch for me. I'm not going to declare him a hit or a miss just yet. I want to see how this Duke team looks in year 2 of the Riley Leonard era. This is his first season with a new head coach and offensive coordinator, so I am going to reserve judgment. But I will tell you that I've added him in every Campus to Canton league where I have unlimited waivers. So he's now on my team in all those leagues. I think there was one other league where he was already rostered by somebody, but I got him everywhere I could this week.
Yeah, I like it. I think he actually was standing out more in the model a few weeks ago. Since then, I think he's thrown a few more picks, and when like right now he has 9 touchdowns to 4 interceptions, and when you start getting to that like 2-to-1 ratio, like the model starts going, maybe not so much. So he's fallen off a little bit. I think his adjusted yards per attempt has actually come down a little bit as well, because I want to say he was up in the 8s or maybe even close to the 9 range a few weeks ago. But I mean, we can at least say he's better than Daniel Jones already, coming from the same school. So I mean, that's saying something. But I don't love him right now. As far as the model, he's kind of in the like Devin Leary, Keaton Slovis, like that kind of range for me. Which is, I mean, I know some people love those guys. I do not. So it's like decent. But maybe not somebody that I'm projecting to be like a quality NFL starter or anything like that. But he's definitely not terrible. Like if you have waivers and you're able to pick him up, I would absolutely recommend that you do that, because there is potential for growth. I mean, obviously he could take a step forward next year. We see 5th-year players, take a step forward, so we can easily see a 3rd-year player do that.
Yeah. All right. Here's a question for you. So 2024 QBs. We've obviously got Quinn Ewers, Caleb Williams. I think we can say Drake May, probably QB3. Is there anyone?
Don't you mean one? Drake May QB1.
Hey, I'm down for that. I just traded Drake May actually along with Rocket Sanders.
Why?
To get,
Why?
It was a Devy league, and I'm like win now, so I got Mike Williams, who proceeded to take a huge jump this week. But that's beside the point. Anyway, so those three guys, so Quinn Ewers, Caleb Williams, Drake May. Let's just call them the top three in whatever order you want.
Sure.
Is there anyone at QB4 you'd take above Riley Leonard in that class?
McCarthy.
You would?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, I would take McCarthy. I'm trying to think of who else is. I'm so bad with like remembering classes and everything.
Yeah, me too. I mean, that was like off the cuff. Like,
no, you're good.
Anthony Richardson when he goes back for another year in college.
Oh,
no,
boy.
he's the worst quarterback in college. He will never be a thing.
We have to let it go.
I'm not going to say who, but I heard a Devy podcast talking about him still being the 101 in 2024 now. He just needs one more year. Like,
it's okay. I still see people with Keishon Boutte as their wide receiver too.
Yeah, and I mean, at least he had a better game, a better week this week. But I mean, yeah, you have to actually like look at what's happening and not just. But no, I do have Leonard. The only other QB that I have ahead of him as of right now from that class is Hudson Card. But I don't know that it would keep it like that. It's just I don't know. He was okay. I don't know if it'll stay that way. I mean, he's probably not going to get on the field. So
he'll definitely transfer this year because he's not going to be playing behind Ewers and Arch Manning. So, so you might be right on that. We'll see.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. But he's the only one that's a little bit ahead of him. But he's the QB5 in the class. I mean, I guess that's better than nothing, right?
For sure.
Alrighty, and that brings us to Chris Rodriguez Jr. What is bringing him on here, and do you think he's fool's gold?
All right, so led the SEC, if I'm not mistaken, in rushing last year. Obviously, he had the suspension. We talked about it a little bit earlier this year. He missed the first 4 games, I believe, of 2022 with the DUI. But since then, picked right up where he left off. He's had nearly 400 yards and 3 touchdowns in 3 games. He is a big guy, over 220 pounds. I think he's 5'11", so his BMI is probably like off your chart. Knocks against him. He is a super senior, but I don't think we really care about that as much for RB success in the NFL. And then those character concerns, obviously, he had the suspension. I've read that he should run in the 4.5s, probably higher 4.5s, which is really all you need, as long as you're not like in the 4.6s or 7s. He scores really high on EPA per play, which measures player efficiency. So where I think he ends up is just being like a contributor in the NFL. He's going to have some startable weeks for you. So I'm going to call him a contender, but only because I'm not going to say he's going to be higher than like a 3rd-round Dynasty rookie pick next year, but I think he produces for your team. I think he's going to have like one of those solid backup roles where if his RB1 goes down, he's going to be, RB1 in that scenario. And, in the scenario where he's just playing behind somebody, he's still going to have like, some Tony Pollard like weeks potentially. So I don't know if he'll ever be like an RB1, probably won't be, but I think he's going to have value. So I'm going to call it a contender, but he's not like blowing me away or anything.
Yeah, I mean, obviously he has the ideal size that you'd love to see and everything. Him being a super senior is definitely not great. I mean, we have to be, if we're assuming that like there's a lot of good running backs and some even like decent running backs, like a lot of decent running backs in this class as well. So if we're assuming that we have a lot of those guys going in the 3rd, 4th, 5th rounds and all that kind of stuff, then we kind of have to assume he's going to be in the 6th or 7th round at that point. So I just don't know how excited you can be. You can call him a contender because we think he's going to be in the NFL. I just don't know if I'm gonna be like overly excited about him being on my team or anything like that.
Right. No, you're not wrong. Like, this is such a deep, deep class. I got to think that some of these juniors are going to go back because there's just not enough room for like all these running backs to get drafted this year. The NFL
It is
just
crazy.
can't support them, but they're so talented. I think that a lot of them are just going to spill over into the 2024 class because, that's not
Tank.
He should. He's one of them, obviously. But I mean, as far as running back talent's concerned, I think we're in like the golden age in the college football. Like 2024 is looking good. 2025 started off amazing. So,
a couple studs in there.
I know, like running back. Like there's going to be so many good running backs in the NFL, which they need desperately because all these guys are getting old. And I say old, they're like 26, but that's old for NFL running backs.
Rodriguez reminds me of like he doesn't have a receiving profile or anything like that. He reminds me of like a Joshua Kelly. Like that's what he's gonna be, like the short down, short yardage, like goal line back, like that kind of thing. And I mean, there is some value there, So it's there's worse players to have on a Devy roster, C2C roster. But like I said, I'm not overly excited about him. But the last player that we have here on the list is somebody that everyone should be pretty excited about him. Lucas, I haven't heard your voice in quite some time. I want to make sure you're still there. Why don't you go ahead and let us know who the last person on the list here is?
It's Jalin freaking Hyatt. That's who it is. The man, the myth, the legend, the guy who scores no matter what he does. Yeah. You're having a good season. Whoever Chad Ochocinco Johnson is constantly in your DMs asking for your signed jerseys.
Dang.
Yeah. It's a good time to be on Rocky Top.
I guess so. So another player that really didn't do very much, like in the beginning of his college career, he had multiple seasons with 200 receiving yards in his freshman and sophomore year, but then blew up this past week. Now, I guess the one thing that we can say about it is the Cedric Tillman was not there. But once again, I don't think you get too many like 200 plus receiving yard games, 5 touchdown games for somebody that's just terrible or anything like that. It just doesn't happen. So everything's looking great. They've turned him, whether it's the offense, him, or whatever, they've turned him into like the deep play machine. Obviously, this past week helped a lot with that, but he has 18 yards per reception on the year, which is like elite territory. You love to see anything in that range, like 16 to 18, like something like that. Like I said, the only thing you can really say is that Tillman wasn't there, but at this point, does it really matter?
No, it doesn't. And it happened against Bama, and the entire country was watching. He might have been the player of the game. I know everyone's talking about Hendon Hooker this week, but Jalin Hyatt, I mean, yeah, he's at 200 yards, 5 touchdowns. And he did take advantage of Tillman's absence in a huge way. And, I'm not going to discount it because that was just a massive game. Now over 3 yards per pass attempt on the year. Super speedy. He's playing, again, that same smaller slot role that we talked about. But he's doing the things we want to see, controlling the offense as we saw last week. He's also had games where he's been soaking up targets. He caught 11 passes on 13 targets against Pitt early in the year. And I know you mentioned, he didn't really do anything year 1 and year 2. I saw Devy Youssef earlier this week compare him to Jamison Williams last year. And I think it's not spot on, but it's very a good comparison. Hyatt didn't need to transfer for one. They don't really play the same wide receiver role. But just a guy that exploded in year 3. He's definitely a guy I think we're going to look back on our rookie mock draft that we did a couple weeks ago and think that we whiffed on not considering taking him in the first 2 rounds, because I think he's potentially, if he keeps it up, a first round dynasty rookie pick if he keeps it up.
Sure. I mean, to be fair, we definitely talked afterward after we did that draft, and we all said, oh man, there's still like a handful of players that I would love to have drafted, and and we knew by doing a draft mid-season that things were going to change and all that. So nothing was set in stone. And of course, like Quentin Johnston blew up the next week after we gave Luke so much crap. It was like it was just so perfect the way that it all worked out. But yeah, so I guess we probably should have taken a break earlier, but we didn't. So that was great talking about the pretenders and the contenders. But why don't we go ahead and take a quick break, and then we'll get into the next segment.
What if getting in early on these running backs comes at the expense of getting out early on some of these aging backs? What if it's trade Dalvin Cook for a 24-1, trade Joe Mixon for a 24-1, trade Derrick Henry, Christ, if you can get a 1 for him, which is actually difficult. But if let's say he has a big blow-up game this week or in the next 2 weeks or for the next 3 weeks and you get a 1 for him, to get in early on these guys, you have to be predictive, not reactive. And I think that that's a part of fantasy football that gets missed, and it takes some cojones to do that. So I think that's the line for our conversation, I think, is that right there. When are you willing to cut bait to get ahead in your dynasty leagues?
Yep, and that is where the art comes in.
And we're back. I actually traded Derrick Henry for 23 first yesterday.
No way.
I did, and I'm the biggest Derrick Henry fan. But man, in that league, it's a start 12. We only start 1 running back and 1 wide receiver, and the rest are flex spots. And so it's super flex, of course, too. But it's just wild. But yeah, I traded Henry, Keenan Allen, and Tyler Lockett and Andy Dalton for Devontae Smith, a 23 first, a 23 second, and Baker Mayfield. So I was pretty happy with the return when it was all said and done. My team just completely fell apart in that league. I had I lost Marquise Brown, I lost Keenan Allen, obviously. Derrick Henry was on a bye, Dalvin Cook was on a bye. I was just like, all right, I'm not winning this league. I'm gonna go ahead and blow it all up.
Yeah. No, it's tough getting rid of those older running backs. I just got rid of Dalvin Cook in a rebuild and got Deontay Johnson for him, so I was pretty excited about that.
Well, one good thing about being midseason, if you want to blow it all up, is you can actually go over to Underdog Fantasy and you can start a new team, a new league, do whatever the hell you want to do over there. The NFL season is underway, and you can still draft a new fantasy team each week on Underdog Fantasy to win cash prizes. Through their slick mobile app and user-friendly site, you can join a league and draft a team in just minutes. Plus, the folks at Underdog are going to help you get started with a deposit match of up to $100 in bonus cash when you sign up and make your first deposit with the promo code FULLTILT. So just visit UnderdogFantasy.com, the App Store, or the Google Play Store. Sign up with the code, and Underdog will double your first deposit up to $100. That's Underdog Fantasy, promo code FULLTILT. So, why don't we go ahead and get into our Week 8 predictions? But first, let's talk about our Week 7 prediction, which we both agreed on.
Do we have to?
Yeah, I know. We both agreed on. We guaranteed it was going to work. So now we learned our lesson.
So here's the lesson. If we both agree on one, we need to just fade it. That means it's a trap. We messed up.
Put our life savings into the opposite.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, not so good. I don't even remember. I don't have it written down here. What did we choose?
Well, we picked Wisconsin on the road against Michigan State -7.5, and the game went to overtime, which Wisconsin ended up losing. So,
didn't Braylon Allen have a hell of a game though?
I mean, he had a Braylon Allen-ish game, and I mentioned Kamir DK and Graham Mertz. They weren't very great, but DK did get a touchdown, so I was like, okay, well, there's that at least. It happened in overtime, so I was like, whew, took a while, but we got there.
All right, how are you getting your redemption this week? Who'd you choose?
Oh, man, I need redemption. I think I'm on a 3-game bender for my picks in here, and this one feels like a trap game, and I tweeted about it. I was like, is this a trap game? And Chris Moxley from Campus to Canton, who does betting, he's like, yes, it's a trap, don't bet it. But I said that about Tennessee last week, and it wasn't a trap, and they covered and then won. So I'm going to do Syracuse at Clemson. Syracuse undefeated. Obviously, Clemson is as well. Syracuse bringing a top 10 defense, top 30 scoring offense into admittedly a much improved Clemson team, starting with DJU, who we've talked about earlier. But I got to believe they're 13.5-point dogs. And I think that is just crazy for like both of these are defensive teams. Like they're both, giving up less than 20 points a game. I think it's going to be low scoring. So hopefully it's not low scoring in that Syracuse doesn't score any points at all, because then I'd be in trouble. But I'm getting almost a 2-touchdown buffer on an undefeated team. I'm going to take it. I know that it's probably a trap. Everyone wants to talk about Sean Tucker, and he's obviously great, but do not sleep on the Syracuse passing attack too, led by sophomore Arande Gadsden, who was another guy that we could have had this contender-pretender discussion about. But I'm going to take the orange, maybe sprinkle the under 2, probably will actually. I'm going to. Buyer beware, because I've been warned that this is a trap, and I'm definitely going to lose.
You gotta love the trap games. I mean, Syracuse has been dominating offensively and everything. I mean, Garrett Schrader's looked great. Obviously, my boy Sean Tucker's looked amazing, and so I can't hate on it. I don't know, but like you said, it is a little scary. I had a very busy day at work. I've been cleaning 32 roofs, and so I got home and I basically laid on the couch and didn't do a damn thing when I got home, and I completely forgot to make a pick. But I'm just going to go ahead and make a random pick and hope that I win, and I'm just going to say that Mississippi State is going to cover. I think that, offensively they can do enough. Alabama has not looked perfect, which we obviously saw this past weekend. Not to take anything away from Tennessee. They played an amazing game, but Bama just hasn't been Bama. The offense isn't clicking. Like, it seems like when Jahmyr Gibbs isn't like touching the ball, that they're just not firing on all cylinders. And so, I don't know. I'm not saying that Bama's going to lose. I just wonder if it'll be enough for them to cover with the line of
minus 21 is what I get.
Yeah, minus 21.5. So
they're getting 3 touchdowns.
Yeah, so actually over 3 touchdowns here.
Right.
So I'm thinking Mississippi State can cover here. I just don't think that Bama, unless Bama's just really pissed off, which is definitely possible. But maybe this is a bad call here. I don't know that the Bama offense is that much better right now to where they're just going to completely dominate.
Yeah, I would be worried about the Bama defenses coming in and like busting some skulls, because Mississippi State struggled last week against Kentucky. I think they only had like 17 points.
Yeah.
But this is not a good Bama team. We've seen them struggle against Texas A&M, and now obviously lost against Tennessee. So yeah, I don't mind betting against this Bama team. I think they are. I think the offense, for one, is like a lot worse than it was a year ago. This wide receivers just don't have it. Gibbs is sort of like the only thing that they can flow the offense through, and it's not. You can't do that. Like, teams are privy to it at this point. They're game planning it. So yeah, I don't hate it. That's pretty good for like just picking on the fly.
Actually, I was just thinking about it. I picked the Clemson and Florida State game out of my ass last week, and like, Florida State made it a game. It was 34-28 when it was all said and done. So for the top 5 team against an unranked team, pretty good. So maybe I need to stop researching this stuff and just go with whatever my gut says.
Right. I mean, that's part of the reason too. I'm just like, how come Florida State's only a 4.5-point underdog to Clemson, and then they're going to make Syracuse 13.5? It just doesn't add up to me. But it's a trap, so don't bet it.
I agree. Alrighty, and then who are you gonna be watching this week?
Well, same game. I'm gonna watch Sean Tucker. We know that he can do it. He's been awesome. He's been great in the passing game this year, which has been awesome to see. But Clemson is currently 4th in rush defense, only 82 yards per game on the ground. I don't want to see him dominate. I don't want to see him do like 150 yards and 3 touchdowns or anything. I just want to see him make some NFL plays, like break some tackles, make some runs downfield against this defense, and win me some freaking money on that bet because I need to end this losing streak right now.
Yes, you do. I also want to see Sean Tucker play very well because I have him in my C2C and I need to continue my winning streak. So let's keep up the big games. I mean, he's just rolling, man. Like 20, 30 points a week. You love to see it. You really do. I think he kind of started off slow last week. I want to say he only had like 15 points or something like that in like the third quarter, and I was like, "What's going on?" And then he finished with his normal like 30 something. I'm like, "All right, now we're talking."
Which like 15 points are just like, come on, Sean, you got to do better than that.
But yeah, if it was anyone else, yeah, exactly. But it was Sean Tucker. Like it's like him, Corum. Like Zay Flowers, like those guys. Like if I'm getting 15 points, I'm pissed. I expect at least 25. But so I made a pretty bold call last night on the Devy devotional, and so I'm going to go ahead and stick with it. And I want to watch Will Rogers tomorrow or this weekend against Alabama. Now, my bold call was that he is the QB3 in the 2023 class, which is very bold. It's definitely not. He that's as is like right now. So I mean, he's not that much farther ahead of a Hendon Hooker or like any of those other guys. There's about 5 guys in that tier that could easily jump over him. But as of right now, I just feel like he's being underappreciated. Like just not really one of those guys that gets talked about all that often. At least I don't really hear about him. He's actually, looking decent, looking pretty good. So I just want to see how he does, how he fares against this Alabama defense. Just like last week I was watching Hendon Hooker. I'm excited to watch some Will Rogers, and hopefully that one doesn't come back to bite me in the ass.
I've like the QB3 of the 2023 class is like the great debate. I feel it's been a new guy every single week, and Will Rogers has been fantastic. I mean, he should be right up there in the Heisman runnings as well. Obviously, last week didn't pan out as what you'd want to see from a Heisman contender, but
he did tie Dak Prescott's touchdown record for the school, though.
Yeah, I mean, he's a great player. So, and he might have that same career arc where what was Dak, like a 4th round draft pick. So, not saying he's going to just show up and start immediately for an NFL team after getting drafted in the 4th round, but I think he could be drafted in the 4th round pretty easily. So, if he does anything good against Alabama, that's going to be great for him. Obviously, it was great for Hooker. So
exactly, that's kind of what I'm thinking. Hooker's probably the one when it's all said and done. He's the next one behind Rodgers right now in my ranks, and he's very close, so he could easily jump over him. You guys know me. I love me some Jaden Daniels. He's kind of fallen back a little bit, but he did have that big game like a week or two ago, but he's fallen back a little bit for me. So now like you said, everyone is trying to make up their mind on who the QB3 is. It's probably not going to matter because
that's.
The top 2 are like up here, like tier 1, and then I have a tier 2. None of the other 23 QBs are in that tier 2, and then in tier 3 I have 5 of those guys. So it just goes to show, like, it's not. Even though I'm saying he's the QB3, I'm not saying he's a special player or anything like that. Like he's a good player, he's a decent player. I just want to see him. I've never actually watched him in a game or anything, so I want to see how it looks. I know like the biggest knocks against him are, it's more of the scheme and the offense than him and all that. But I think it was Travis May posted something today, and it was showing all of the they took away all of like the BS throws from all of the college QBs, like play action, like screen plays, like all that kind of stuff, and they were just like looking at the like actual NFL throws. And Will Rogers was like 4th or 5th on the list. As far as like, I forget exactly what it was looking at. I have to bring it up, and I probably shouldn't have opened my mouth, if I couldn't remember it. But it was basically looking at like who the best QBs are, and he was up at the top. Bryce Young was up there. Drake May was up there. Like like a lot of good players. So I don't think he's just like all scheme or all fit. Like I think he is a decent talent.
Yeah, for sure. And you're right. QB3, this is like the great debate that will mean absolutely nothing 6 months from now, but it's fun. We'll have fun talking about it.
Yeah, Lucas, who do you have at QB3?
I can't believe you have to ask.
You got to make
Hendon
QB1.
Hooker. It has to be Hendon Hooker. There's no way I was going to let
He's
Will
like, "Did you watch
Levis's
the
name
game?"
come out of my mouth right there. I am very happy to hear that, like, to not hear about every single week 15 NFL teams sending their scouts to watch Will Levis. So I hope they finally got the message that we all were telling them before the season started. But
I mean, I still see. I actually was just trying to find an NFL draft like mock and see if Rodgers' name was even mentioned in it, but I can't find anything beyond like the first round, and I don't expect them to be a first round pick. So that wasn't really fruitful. But I'm still seeing like NFL mock drafts that are happening right now, like this week. Will Levis in the top 5, and I'll never understand it, but obviously we've seen crazier stuff happen, so it's definitely possible. I don't get it. I do not get it.
It makes me so angry when I see those. I'm like, are these guys even watching football? And then Peyton Manning on game day was like, Will Levis, this is an NFL quarterback. And I was like, what? Come on, Peyton. Watch it.
I think it's like one of those players that goes to his camp and he probably likes the guy. He's probably a great guy, talks really well, can throw the ball and, but like, so they're looking at him. They're like, oh, he's got an arm. Well, you need more than an arm to be an NFL QB.
I will say the exact things he was saying on game day is exactly what he said last year about Kenny Pickett. So who knows? Maybe not a great comparison there.
Small hands.
All right, I think that's enough bashing on Levis. Although I could probably do it all night long.
You should just do the next show. Just bash Levis.
Oh, can we just do that? Can we bash Levis and Richardson, like just an all bash show, and just talk shit about Tank and mean just all of them. I mean,
you all control the show sheet.
Yeah,
that's a good idea. Like, I'm good with that.
Yep, that's what we're gonna do next week, where everybody else is dead wrong and we're right, so they can all suck it.
Anytime I can say Kentucky, I'm going to be happy. So I'm all down for this.
Let's get some. We can get some call-ins too. Like if the listeners want to, voice their opinion on who they hate, who sucks. Like we can get some call-ins, do some voicemails and all that. Like I think I was told that we have that technology now, so yes. We can. Yeah, we should be able to. Yeah, I think we're onto something here. But we're right around an hour. It was a lot of fun. We got some good info. Hopefully, you guys learned something about some players. I know I did about a couple of these guys that I really haven't truly been paying attention to all of them. But we can definitely. We will definitely be back next week, hopefully talking some shit about Tank Bigsby and Will Levis and Anthony Richardson. But for now, we're going to go ahead and cash out. Lucas, do we need to talk about anything else before we get out of here, though?
Nope, you all absolutely nailed it. And now we know what to look forward to next week. Just make sure to check out the rest of our shows on the Full Tilt podcast network. We have our Friday show back after a 2-week hiatus. So we're going to continue some aging running back talk. Really looking forward to it. And if you missed our show yesterday, they did another really nice job talking about aging running backs from a dynasty perspective and when do you want to get out on them.
I will say I listened to that show and I was very disappointed in the lack of Blake Corum discussion.
Oh, yeah. Don't worry. I will cover for you all. I got
What the hell was that? He's out on Blake Corum and he's out on Jahmyr Gibbs? Like, what the hell's going on? I told him that he needs to listen to the Full Tilt Devy podcast so we can learn.
If you're not 6'1", 225 pounds, and can freaking just run over anybody in sight and pull a school bus while you're doing it, Tom doesn't care. So, unless your name's James Cook, that's his only exception. Is James Cook.
James Cook. That's the hill he dies on.
All right, guys, let's go ahead and get out of here. It was fun. We will see you next week.